Now, speaking of the season resetting, this is going to be the longest season in college football history, ending January 20th in Atlanta. We will be there. It'll be a blast. We haven't had a chance, I don't think, we haven't had a chance since the college football playoff field came out to give you our thoughts on this in a live capacity. Now, if you're subscribed to the channel, we had a reaction video for you, a mere few minutes after that whole situation dropped. So another reason to be subscribed. But for those of y'all that just catch the podcast, just catch the live show, my thoughts on the playoff are a little bit multifaceted, if you will. Because if it's me, I think Alabama, if you put them on the field with SMU and played 100 games, I think Alabama would win 85 to 90 of those games. Just my opinion. However, given what the committee was trying to do, which is put in, a resume and different facets of their logic with the college football playoff bracket, I think they got the teams right. All that's to say, I think SMU over Bama is probably the right call. If you're Alabama, the tough part of this is, you can't lose to Oklahoma. Your conversation to bargain with the committee, you lose a lot of chips when you lose to a 6-6 SEC team. All right? It is the way that it is. Now, a lot of folks now from the Bama crowd are saying, well, it's the conference we play in. We're not going to schedule a tough non-conference then. Conference is definitely tough, no way around it. I don't think Oklahoma is an easy out by any stretch, even though they did have a 6-6 record this year. Anybody can get anybody. That's 100% true. But don't tell me it's a non-conference thing. Because Western Kentucky, USF, Wisconsin, and Mercer is not exactly the gauntlet. Wisconsin obviously is not a slouch, but playing two G5 schools and Mercer, nobody's having an issue with your gauntlet to get into the college football playoff, okay? So I think, to put a bow on that thought, I think within the logic of the college football playoff committee, they got the teams right. However, the seeding for this college football playoff format is absolutely broken, and there's a couple thoughts within that. This season, we'll see how broken it actually is, but you should never be hoping for a lower seed to benefit you in the college football playoff. The best example of this is Oregon. We talked about it on our reaction video. Oregon's the number one seed in this whole deal. They've earned it. Undefeated, beat Ohio State, beat Penn State for the Big Ten championship. They're the top seed in this bracket. Seeding is supposed to benefit you. Seeding is supposed to make your path easier if you're Oregon. So Dan Lanning doesn't care about this, but we'll talk about it on this show. Oregon's path is brutal, man. Oregon, what do you get for being the one seed? The winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. Meanwhile, the team that you just beat in the Big Ten championship game, they have, I would say, the most navigable path of this entire college football playoff bracket. You got SMU in the first round, which they will be, I have to believe, a pretty strong mismatch for that team. And then you play Boise State, the G5 rep. I would much rather have Penn State's path. I'd much rather play Boise State in round 2 than have to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. We saw Ohio State, for all their faults, all their flaws against Michigan, play Oregon to a 1-point game in Eugene. Tennessee, I think, is one of those teams that I would not want to see in the college football playoff based on what they are in the trenches and based on what they are schematically. All that's to say, the seeding for this college football playoff is broken. There's a part of me now that is glad that the season has gone how it's gone so that we can see how broken the seeding really is. So I was talking to Caden Smith about this yesterday as we got ready for the show. If this whole situation with the college football playoff seeding and the buys and the conference champs had been nice and neat and tidy, and you got Arizona State in there at 12-1, you got Oregon undefeated, you got a Georgia there undefeated, we wouldn't have a good gauge for how broken this whole thing really is. And I think when things are broken and we get a chance to see how broken they are, that's a catalyst for us wanting to fix things. And so I say all that to say, as we move into the next iteration of this thing in 2026, I promise you, the seeding for this whole deal will be very, very different. The auto bids for this whole thing will be very, very different. I'd be surprised from the Big Ten and the SEC with the cards they hold. I'd be surprised if they don't find a way to bargain for more auto bids for their conference in general. Just my feeling. I don't know if that'll happen. That's, I think, the biggest takeaway with this whole thing. Oregon having to play Tennessee or Ohio State after their bye in the college football playoff is just it's absolutely ridiculous. It does not play into what common sense would say about what seeding should ultimately do for you if you're the number one seed. The 6th seed should never be more advantageous than the 1 seed, to put it simply. So, I say all that to get back to this point. These games are still going to be awesome. Like, we have an issue with the college football playoff committee, how it's put together. We have an issue with the bracket. We have an issue with them expanding to 12 teams. Like, I've been on the front line of that. But when they actually play the games, it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's never been something we've ever disputed on this show. Like, getting Clemson and Texas in round one, as bizarre as that is, if you're Texas, again, a team that should be at an advantage as the 5 seed, you got to play the ACC champion Clemson. Like, it's still going to be awesome for us as a viewer. So as much as we have an issue with the logic, I think college football in itself will still be awesome. We're still going to be dialed in. We'll still do a ton of content around it. But I just want us to all be aligned here. The college football playoff, as it is right now, we're not going to have this same format in 2026. I promise you that. I promise. Even if it ends up being a situation where, you know, the seeding works itself out to SMU goes on a run and they end up proving that, hey, this is actually right to have this number of teams and this kind of seeding. The flaws are there. The flaws are absolutely there. And it will be very, very different when we re-rack this thing in 2026.